Does anyone give a shit about Gap anymore?
You're talking to somebody who wears an Old Navy shirt right now. So,
Oh, no, I've worn Old Navy shirts, but I'm saying I don't remember the last time I heard about Gap.
I mean, if you need to get clothes for 10-year-olds, and how many 10-year-olds are there in the continental United States?
Welcome to episode 51 of Beyond the Bench on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. That's Nick Fodera. I'm Nick Morgasen. Back for more shenanigans and craziness.
Yeah, it is shenanigans and craziness, and this is a lot of... See, this episode of Beyond the Bench, we like to have at least some congruity between a lot of the shows on the network, and there is a little bit of... There's follow-up to a lot of the topics this week. But before we get to that, we have to make sure that you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Beyond the Bench 1. You need to make sure you follow us on social media, as you can see scrolling across the screen there, at the ETB Network on Twitter, and myself on Twitter, and Nick Morgasen as well.
Yeah, so make sure you follow us across all the social media platforms. That'll scroll. We're trying to change some stuff on the shows, so you're not going to see the scrolls across the whole show. That way you can see more stuff on the screen and we don't get cut out. So you'll see this come back later. But we have a lot to get into. This is going to be an interesting show. There is a Kanye part 2. That's going to be the leading headline of this show. So make sure you...
Considering this is probably part 7 or 8 at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. But there's going to be a lot of Kanye, so make sure you strap in for that. Also, there's going to be a lot of dead body death stories in this episode. I apologize in advance. It's just the way the headlines fell.
It was just weird timing with Halloween and all, and we weren't trying to be morbid or anything.
Right. Also, Brittney Griner's in the news again. Are we really surprised what the outcome of this appeal was? We'll get into that. Neil Patrick Harris apparently making some really creepy, almost pedophilia-like comments.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Matthew Perry making some comments about Keanu Reeves, but that story goes into many different parts. Is Stormy Daniels back on reality TV? By the way, Stormy Daniels, where'd you hear? We haven't heard that name in a while.
We haven't heard that name in a while, but it's not for the reason you might think. But we'll get into that later.
Right. Also, the New York Post being hacked.
Kinda, if you squint.
Yeah. Also, more death to the radio business, unfortunately, and a whole heck of a lot more. So, let's go. So, we have a lot to get to on episode 51, and unfortunately, we need to start with a certain somebody, which we started with last week. Kanye West escorted out of Skechers Headquarters after showing up uninvited. Now, that's kind of like, hey, I'm a big-time celebrity. I'll show up where I'm not wanted, and then I'll get kicked out.
Okay, so to give you the too long didn't read version, just in case you didn't see what we've been covering the past couple of weeks, because this was also something we talked about a little bit on Empty the Bench this week. Pluggity plug, but
for a different reason.
Kanye West has been going down the anti-Semitic rabbit hole, saying horrible anti-Semitic things, saying that he is going DEFCON 2 on the Jews that control the media. And when they attempted to hand him a rope to get out of there, he then proceeded to hang himself with it.
He choked himself and he hung himself.
In that he doubled and tripled down. So you are now seeing the effects of not cancel culture, but consequence culture, like I keep talking about.
And by the way, and I'm hearing a lot of people are saying, well, this is the consequences of cancel culture. This is not cancel culture, okay? This is, I'm an idiot.
They gave him ample opportunities for him to dig his ass out of it. Because again, let's be reminded. It's not just anti-Semitism that was the last straw. He's been saying shit like this about black women and other black artists, and frankly, everybody for years now. But everybody brushed it off because, oh, he's just Kanye. He's an eccentric genius. He can say whatever he wants.
I mean, we should have done this a long time ago.
But who would have thought that getting divorced from Kim Kardashian was the straw that broke the camel?
We should have sounded the alarms a long time ago when he started saying, "I'm going to run for president. I'm going to turn this country into what I want it to be." That should have been the alarms that should have been sounded.
It's kind of terrifying now that you know that actually what he's about. So. I mean, what is it you wanted this country to be, Kanye?
But I'm saying is, you know what's disturbing? And I was saying this to Nick before we started. The man was probably worth $1 billion. He was probably a billionaire.
I think he was a billionaire.
In layman's terms, he was a billionaire with all the companies he was working with. And we'll get to that in a second. But showing up to the Skechers headquarters unannounced and then getting your ass kicked out.
Which I know this is apropos of nothing, but I didn't realize until today that Skechers, there's no T in the name of the shoe company Skechers, which might have been news to some of you, but that was weird.
I didn't know it either. I thought there was a T in there the whole time.
But the reason why he did that was because the company that makes his shoes, the Yeezys, which apparently are the big moneymaker for him, because his albums don't, like Jay-Z, he likes to have his fingers in a bunch of different pies.
Well,
so
I'm going to explain something to you in a second, which is going to be really awkward to people who don't understand the licensee business, but I'll let you finish that point first.
So he's been dropped so far by his own legal representation, Adidas, after a couple of days, about a week of silence.
Oh, I had to make a list. I had to make a list of the companies.
Let's at least read off some of that list.
So I'll move to part 2 of this. So cutting ties with Kanye is what I'm calling this, because it started last week. So first it was Adidas, then it was Balenciaga was the clothing company, then it was CAA, which is his agency representation for music. Then it was Cohen, Claire, Lanz, Graffier, Thorpe, and Rotson Street. And I apologize if I totally botched.
Because I think that's the name of a lawyer firm, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, when it has 4 or 5 names in it, I'm assuming it's a law firm. Gap, which I said to Nick, does anyone give a shit about Gap anymore?
You're talking to somebody who wears an Old Navy shirt right now. So,
oh no, I've worn Old Navy shirts, but I'm saying I don't remember the last time I heard about Gap.
I mean, if you need to get clothes for 10-year-olds, and how many 10-year-olds are there in the continental United States? A lot. So you can make a lot. You're making a lot of money with Gap.
Then you have JP Morgan Chase. Now we talked about that last week, that he was kind of having a private conversation with like the CEO, and then he said some bad things to the JP Morgan Chase CEO, and he's like, don't need that anymore.
Nope, don't need that. Nope.
And apparently there was like $150 million involved with JP Morgan Chase.
Exactly, and that's what made it. That's what made it so startling at that point. But Peloton, like you said, Peloton also had, because I think some of the Peloton trainers. Granted, I don't have a Peloton because I have no idea how the fuck.
Well, wait, you're jumping ahead. But so after JP Morgan Chase, MRC, which you told
Media
me,
Rights Capital, which is a production company that was creating. I think they were creating a documentary about him, but not anymore.
Oops. Then you had social media, which we talked about. That was a public spectacle that he made.
He was kicked off of Facebook and.
Well, no, Facebook he was not kicked off of. He was kicked off, which doesn't make any sense. So he was banned from Twitter and from Instagram. Now, last time I checked, Facebook and Instagram, I think, are owned by Zuckerberg. So I don't understand why he wasn't kicked off of Facebook. But unless they treat the platform separately in technicality. So, yeah, he was banned from Instagram. But we know some of the weird shit he posted on Instagram.
Yeah. And it's not like people aren't willing to at least try and dig because we're clearly in the midst of witnessing a man have a complete and total mental breakdown. I mean, he is literally losing his mind as we speak. And I'm not trying to denigrate anybody that has mental illness, but for the people who are mentally ill or have members of their family about that have mental illness. Kanye's kind of making those people with mental illness and bipolar disorder specifically kind of look bad because it's not.
Of course, of course, he's making people with mental illness look bad because he's an asshole. He's a jerk. He doesn't. And I'm reading like some of the info that came out from social media companies. So the dangerous part, he had 31 million followers on Twitter. That's why he was blocked from Twitter. Also, from Instagram, 18 million. So he had close to 50 million followers between Twitter and Instagram. No wonder he was thrown off those social media. He could have caused a massive frenzy all over again.
Especially if you're spouting anti-Semitic, you're spouting anti-Semitic conspiracy theories to people who really don't understand these things and are kind of naive about them. That could definitely act as the first step to a very slippery slope, and you don't like whether. Well, believe me, you don't like where that tunnel ends up.
Did you see what he tweeted? And they wrote it in this story. Look at this, Mark. How are you going to kick me off Instagram along with a photo of the two together in a group? I mean, are you kidding me?
He thought he was bulletproof for so long, and you know what? He he used that image of him being a genius and a prophet and a truth teller.
I'm going to say it again, okay?
To enable him to basically say what he wanted, and people will still love him. And for a certain amount, for a long period of time, that was the case.
He's not a genius.
Even though it wasn't really right, because there were plenty of people, especially in the rap community, that were saying this guy is a fucking asshole.
Of course he is. And by the way, anyone who says he's a genius needs to go check themselves at the door. But
I wasn't a genius, but he's clearly in a bad way right now.
He's not a genius. He's an idiot. And I would also say he's a political prop, like I said last week.
He's being used as a political prop by and like I told you before we started the show, it's only going to be a matter of time before he ends up on the Daily Wire.
And what did I say to you?
Wire, he ends up on One American News Network or Glenn Beck's Fox News or something.
Oh, Blaze Media.
Yeah, Glenn Beck's network.
Blaze. It's called Blaze. Blaze.
Yeah, I'd forgotten the name for a second.
But what did I tell you? If he ends up on the Daily Wire, what do you think? What did I tell you I think could happen?
I mean, you could potentially see a shitstorm, but Ben Shapiro is Jewish, so
No, but I said, think about it. Ben Shapiro ends up doing a show with Kanye West. It would be the most watched thing on.
It would, and that's kind of the fucked up part about it.
And by the way, let me clarify one thing. I'm not saying it should happen. I'm saying far from it.
I'm just saying there are going to be people that are, especially within right wing media, especially how cozy he's been with people like Musk and Trump and Candace Owens in recent.
Well, did you see what Candace Owens said about the whole George Floyd situation? That
he died of a fentanyl overdose.
No, that was Kanye. We talked about that last week.
That was Kanye.
But no, Candace Owens came out and said, "Well, I'm going to file a lawsuit against the Floyd family for." Blah, 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 blah.
Filing a counter lawsuit, I think.
Right, which was so stupid. Stupid. And I had to hear that name a million times.
Okay, you want to waste your money? Look, the judge is going to dismiss this case so hard. It's basically going to be like a fadeaway 3-point shot from a goal.
By the way, like I said, and I say this a million times, the place I worked at, I was told a million times, hey, well, maybe we should have her on as a guest. And I said, get the fuck out of here.
Throwing that lawsuit in the trash is going to be like a slam dunk in a bench.
No. That name was floated as a guest multiple times.
I know that, but
I said, look, I'm declining. I no mas. Don't keep Candace Owens away from here. Okay, I don't want any part of that. Because I just said that's a shitstorm, a troublemaker waiting to happen. I said,
yeah, and it's essentially that is kind of the conservative brand now. Not to say that there aren't plenty of Democrats and Democrats, liberals, progressives, socialist, whatever you want.
Both sides have their issues.
The media attention, but it's about outrage merchants. It's about who can scream the loudest and say the most offensive thing and piss the most people off.
Well, I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'll briefly bring it up. You notice on all the commercials, the political commercials, because we're coming up on Senate elections and all this stuff. You notice, remember how they used to say, hey, use the commercials, use the money to promote how you're going to do the right stuff for whatever Senate or whatever local government you're running for. It's become a shitstorm of, I'm going to use my political campaign and my commercials to say how bad a person you are, not the good stuff I could do, but I'm going to say how bad you are.
That's the political climate we've been living in. I mean,
no, Nick.
But even before Trump.
No, but Nick, it's gotten really bad to the point where people.
That's what I'm saying. It's gotten horrible. Where
like, it's no longer about what you can do for the positive.
It's about how pissed off can I make you.
Well, no, it's
how can I hurt the people I don't like,
or what lies can I say about my opponent,
that's what people seem to be. That's what people seem to be wanting out of their celebrities, media figures, and political figures nowadays. It's like, what can you do to hurt the people that I don't like?
And to wrap it into this for a second for Kanye, no one is going to talk to, even politicians are not going to talk to Kanye anymore because he doesn't have the social media following anymore.
You are definitely going. Okay, you may very well see him at the RNC next year.
That's stupid. He has no following.
3 years.
If he's banned, who's going to care?
You might. I'm just saying it might happen. It might happen.
And by the way,
it's not like he wasn't. He's not been given at least some chances to look. At least calm down a little bit, maybe because the Holocaust Museum actually had offered, Kanye, why don't you come over and at least understand, things from the Jewish perspective.
Wow.
As much as there is a Jewish perspective.
I mean, I give them.
There is a Jewish perspective, but he's. You know what he said?
Well, I didn't hear what he said.
Planned Parenthood is my Holocaust. And I don't know if he actually said that or was that just.
If he said that, he deserves to be. If he said that, he deserves not to have a single dollar made ever again.
But you know what? I mean, you're Jewish, so I mean, you
half Jewish, but yes, half Jewish.
Tell me how you feel.
From my standpoint, now I worked in media, so I first of all, he shouldn't have said it at all. I don't care if it was about Christians or about Jews or about whatever religion.
Yeah,
I don't care. You shouldn't have said it at all. Okay, that's my number one stance as I'm working in the media. That you shouldn't say anything that could be 1% controversial, rather than 50% or.
And it's not like they misconstrued his words. I mean,
no,
it was pretty unambiguous about what it was that he was saying.
When has Kanye ever been short on words and wanting to be completely transparent? That's who he is. He is transparent. He doesn't lie.
I mean,
I'm talking about when he speaks.
Yeah, when he speaks, there's no doubting what he says.
I'm not saying he's ever lied.
There's no doubting that he means what he says.
Right, that's what I mean. He's completely transparent when he speaks. That's what gets him in trouble.
And he means what he says. So where we go from here, I mean, it's really, we're basically just watching the news here just to, out of morbid curiosity, to see how far this man can sink. Because
now let me go on to some of the other stuff. So you started to mention, and part of that is this. So Madame Tussauds, which is the wax figures museum, I went to it in New York. It's actually kind of cool. You get to see the different things. I actually saw the Kanye wax figure years ago, and so they're removing his wax figure. Now I don't blame them. No one wants his figure or his attention or his. He
has kind of become radioactive.
I think you're being nice. I think you're being nice by saying he's radioactive. He's a volcanic eruption.
Yeah, you really don't want anybody near him at this point.
So and I wanted to talk about before because you brought up
at least right now. But yeah, go ahead.
Because you were talking about clothing and shoes and stuff. So because of his moronacy, I just made up a word, idiocy. He lost his
moronitude.
Moronitude. There we go. That's a good one. I like that. He lost his naming rights because Yeezy was a partnership between him and Adidas. So guess what? What can't he do now?
He can't. If he tries to come out with another shoe line, he can't use the Yeezy name anymore.
Oops. So now he can't use that. Now, first of all, I don't think anyone's taking anything that he's making right now at all. So it doesn't matter. Unless he's going to sell it himself. And in that case, he might sell a lot because there are the assholes out there who are going to defend him anyway. But TJ Maxx is another one which owns Home Goods and Marshalls, which are two other brands that are kind of dying. But TJ Maxx basically said, no mas. Done. Don't want that in our stores. So he's lost everything. He's literally lost everything. And then I didn't know did you know he was working with Foot Locker?
No, I did not. Apparently he had some kind of exclusive licensing deal to sell Yeezys at Foot Locker.
So apparently the sneaker retailer came out earlier this week and said it would remain a partner. And I was like, huh? I was like, what?
Ultimately, it's gonna be ugly unless somebody gets this man serious help.
He's fucked. That's all. That's the nicest thing I could say. What do you do here? You can't do anything. The man is radioactive waste, like you said.
I mean, you can't. If he's steadfastly refusing help when it's clear he's unwell. I mean, there's little you can do to help him.
What was the joke I made last week? They need to put him in that straitjacket with the arms tied up so he can't do any more damage to himself.
I mean, is there anybody in his life right now who cares enough about him to try and do that? I know his ex-wife and his kids care about him, but
not real. And I think Kim should stop and run away as fast as possible. To be honest,
what do you think she was dating Pete Davidson?
Well, forget that. That's not really important. But my point is that there's no victory here. Like anyone that's near him should run away. And this is going to sound like a crude reference, but Kanye West has reached Alex Jones status.
Not yet. He'll need to be doing this for about a decade plus before
Kanye would you say Kanye was bigger than Alex Jones though? From a standpoint of brand?
In terms of global impact, yeah. This would be like somebody who was all of a sudden Brad Pitt ending up hosting InfoWars in a couple of years.
And I forgot about this part, by the way. We talked about this in the first one. So the reason Adidas was having issues, do you remember the video that came out that when he was sitting with the CEO, like the camera was like a million miles away, but you could see them talking, and he was showing them a phone with a video on it?
Yeah.
Do you remember what he was showing the Adidas CEO?
No, I don't.
Try a certain graphic video from a certain industry.
Oh crap! You've shown him porn.
Yeah. And that was the end of that. So
you can only hope the man gets help, and it's just. But you know what?
I mean,
what can he do with this?
What Kanye West has become to the entertainment industry is what Deshaun Watson has done to sports.
Again, he's not. I mean, because technically Deshaun Watson still has a job. So,
well, he shouldn't.
Whether he should or shouldn't, I mean, but so it's not a direct one-to-one comparison.
No, I was just saying what Kanye is doing to entertainment is what Deshaun did to the sports world, where
giving it a black eye.
What?
Giving it a black eye.
Well, I would be careful with that phrase because people can misconstrue it. But
punch it in the face.
No, I know.
Giving it a nosebleed. Maybe that would be
right. I don't know. It's a weird situation that can't be won. Anyway, all right. Let's move on from Kanye because I'm getting a rash from it. Anyway, let's talk about, this is a first story about radio. We have another one at the end. This one's more unfortunate. They're both unfortunate, but this one is really unfortunate.
So we promise we won't spend that much time on it because it's kind of morbid, but this is a BBC host who apparently collapsed.
He was working at home. He was working at home, which was even creepier. So he was in retirement for many years. The guy's name is Tim Gow, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's 55 years old, by the way, which is young. In today's time, that's young.
It is very young.
Longtime British radio host died of suspected heart attack while on the air doing a morning show for a company called Gen X Radio. And he had a whole radio studio. And if you look at the picture in the article, Nick, he had a full studio set up. And apparently there's no explanation. It happened.
He was just there and then he was gone.
He was on the air, literally on the air. You know how people, and I know they don't mean poorly by it, but they say, well, I'm going to do my job in radio that to the point where I'm going to die on the air. Well,
I'm pretty sure they don't exactly mean it literally.
They don't mean literally.
They don't mean literally, but I mean 55. I mean, God, that's just horrible.
Apparently,
way too young.
I think he worked for BBC first. That was his long career. Then he retired, and then this company. He came back and helped this company, Gen X Radio. Yeah, this is just a story of unfortunate circumstances.
It is a story of unfortunate circumstances. I mean, you never want to see somebody just go just go like that. But I mean,
it makes me wonder if he actually knew about his health situation.
I feel bad for his family.
It makes me wonder when someone dies of an unfortunate situation, like a heart attack. It makes me wonder if they had health they weren't taking care of their health or not.
Well, I mean,
I don't mean that meanly. I mean, like, that means there had to be some other circumstances that he was not healthy.
I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody. I don't think we're going to find out at this point. At least not until later. But
I'm not begrudging the guy. Let me make that clear first.
Yeah, I know you're not. It's just a difficult thing to deal with because it's not like he died, but it was just so sudden.
Trust me,
everybody says that they're going to be able to, they want to be able to do this until they drop, but when it literally happens to somebody,
that's a scary situation. I mean,
it's a scary situation. It gives you a little bit of pause, I would think.
Now, and Nick, you can relate to this because you heard me talk about this a lot. The hours in radio, whether it's during the day, whether it's on the overnight, whether it's middle of the day, radio hours are brutal.
They are. They are grueling. There were times where I would be going to. People would be waking up in the morning, and then he'd be coming back.
I mean, that's what was happening to me. Like, and I think that's part of the grueling why I eventually had to leave my position at the radio station. I worked. I'll give you an example. I worked overnight for almost 2 years, and it was fucking up holidays for me. I couldn't when I got home, and I couldn't sleep because it was daylight when I got home.
Yeah, and I could just imagine what your sleep schedule was like.
It wasn't.
It didn't exist. So, I mean, when you're basically keeping the hours, when you're basically keeping vampire hours, it can't be good for your health.
I eventually had to go to management and say, "Look, I can't do this anymore." And they looked at me and said, "Well, you're young," and I'm like, "I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter if you're young, you're old, you're indifferent."
Because you don't want to be. I mean, if it means that much to you, I mean, had the thought occurred to you at any point that anybody you're working with might die on air?
No. First of all, our staff is a lot younger than.
I'm not talking about the staff. I'm talking about the talent.
Oh, no. But there were times during the pandemic where I was like, It's not worth it. Just put a damn best of on during the pandemic. It's not worth risking someone's health or someone's.
And it's not worth risking the health of your talent because, I mean, even the healthiest people, it can wear them down.
And this made me nervous. And we just went through a situation last week where my colleague, Bernie McGurk, passed away from, what was it? Prostate cancer, I think it was, right? And 65 years old. I mean, that's still young in today's standards, believe it or not. 65. So, or 64. And it's unfortunate. And radio hours are brutal. And just for people in context, I was going back and forth to New York City almost every day. That added 2 hours to my travel ETA time back and forth. So if you want to be in radio, you need to understand that there's going to be ups and downs, and it's brutal. I'm telling you the cold, hard truth when it comes to working in radio. Okay? So I don't begrudge the man because he must have, I'm sure he loved his job. He came out of retirement to do it again. Okay? So it is what it is. And unfortunately, I feel bad for the man because his family was left behind. So I don't know. It's tough. All right. Well, we'll stay in the category of a little bit of morbid, and we'll talk about TikTok. And a Kentucky man posed as a dead body on TikTok for 321 straight days, and now he's going to be on CSI playing a dead body.
So when I initially heard this story, I thought it was like the planking craze that everybody did when we were in college. Where you would just stand out stiff as a board and,
Yeah.
But no, that's not that. He literally did TikToks of him just laying there like a dead body. And apparently he was so convincing. And apparently he was so convincing that CSI noticed, and they hired him to be an extra.
Apparently, so the guy's name is Josh Nally and has zero acting experience, but he's so natural playing dead. He's been cast to play a dead man on an upcoming episode of the popular CBS series CSI Vegas, which I think is the newest CSI. How many freaking versions of CSI are there?
Oh, then they're not going to stop until they have one version of CSI for all 50 states.
Great. So he's quoted as saying, "I got an email from CBS that said they'd seen me on TikTok and wanted to offer me the part. At first, I didn't believe it, but they flew me out to California, and the director for that episode." Let's see. It turned out that Mario Van Peebles was the director of Peebles was the director for that episode. Whatever. So, not the point. So besides getting cast in the show, I also got to meet him and the director of the show. So this was big deal. Big deal. It wasn't fake.
It's a great break for the guy because he literally started off doing this as fun. So.
If you call playing dead being fun.
Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna lie, it is a little morbid. Plus, when you actually do die, how are people not gonna know you're doing a bit?
It says most often he's face down in snow, dirt, grass, or rocks on the bank of a river, someone's front lawn, or a local park. Occasionally, Nally changes up his dead guy pose and slumps against a crumbling brick wall or reclines headfirst at the foot of a set of stairs.
It does raise a couple of questions, though, doesn't it? Because how did you manage to get so good at playing a dead body? You look at photos of corpses?
I thought I read somewhere that he watches a lot of the crime shows or something.
And they look at a lot of corpses because they have to get it right, so...
I don't know, but has
he ever pranked somebody? Has he ever pranked a loved one by doing the corpse?
Oh God, that's cruel. That's cruel.
That's kind of cruel.
So, and I just saw this picture as well. I'm looking at it. So when he traveled to California for his debut on CSI Vegas, CBS producers took Nally to the Hollywood Walk of Fame to pose for one of his now famous unalive videos next to a Hollywood star. Is that crazy?
Honestly, it is crazy. everybody has specialized skills, but you know what? TikTok is.
Well, it's not TikTok. It's really more playing dead.
It's really more playing dead, but I mean, the fact that spread so quickly on TikTok that it got the attention of producers at CBS. I mean, that's not nothing.
I just, you know what?
Bravo.
You turned playing dead on TikTok into a part on CSI.
So you know what? We're honestly, yeah. We just take a bow. Seriously.
And by the way, you know what it proves? It used to be way back when you wanted to be in the media game or the entertainment game, you wanted to be on a show. You had to try out. You had to have a connection just to get on the set, to have any chance, even to be an extra. Now,
you got to know somebody. So
now you can go on TikTok, build a huge following, and if you do something like playing dead, and a lot of people notice it, like a CSI director, then
yeah, then you can all of a sudden just be whisked away to Hollywood.
Well,
of course, you're playing a dead guy, but still,
it doesn't say whether it doesn't say whether it's recurring or if it's just a one part. I mean, it's still cool, even if it's a one-time thing.
He's clearly doing this to play a dead body. I mean, it's not exactly. He's not exactly going to be cast as an extra playing a barista at Starbucks or something.
That's true. You're right. So it can't really be a reoccurring part because he's dead.
He could end up being one of those guys where he ends up on every crime show as basically a dead body.
That'd be sick. That'd be so cool.
In multiple ways, it would be sick.
Yeah, you're right. I just thought about that.
It's a Screen Actors Guild card that just says corpse guy on it.
Willing to play dead for food.
And here I thought that was just something the dogs did.
Exactly. I was just going to say that too.
Which, by the way, follow us on TikTok if you can.
Yeah, at ETB Network. We had some funny videos up there.
Yeah.
But we'll stay in the dead realm again. Well, you can't really call it dead because it kind of got what's the word I'm looking for here? Debunked. So Jerry Lee Lewis not dead?
So if you don't know, Jerry Lee Lewis is a rock and roll singer, one of the most legendary rock and roll voices and piano players in rock and roll history, and he inspired a whole hell of a lot of your favorite bands. So, and I unfortunately, shame on me, I thought he had died years ago.
Yeah,
I did not realize that he was still alive. So
Kyle Hirsch, who does a show on our podcast network, he messaged me and he's like, Jerry Lee Lewis died. I'm like, wow. And so and I go and I do my standard source things since I've been in radio and working in news radio for 4 years. I go and I look and I say, oh, wow, all the sources are reporting it. I'm like, oh, wow, it's true. It's a good thing I didn't post it on our social media accounts.
No, it's a good thing you didn't because it turns out he's not dead. So
basically, TMZ, who we've been giving a lot of praise to lately because over the years they were a lot of bullshit theater.
They were usually the ones that got it first.
No, but I'm saying they used to be bullshit theater and they would make a lot of things up.
They still kind of are bullshit theater, but go ahead.
No, but they actually are a lot more accurate now reporting deaths. I guess if you call that a thing.
Unfortunately, it has to be something morbid like that.
So then we find out that it was someone who they thought was a rep for Jerry Lee Lewis. A source. Not the actual rep. So, he's not dead. And TMZ is now caught with their pants down.
He honestly, see, these are the perils and the pitfalls of using TMZ as your only source for things. And I'm not slinging any accusations here, but again.
Well, TMZ used to be a lot worse with this.
They used to be a lot worse, but they could still get tripped up on things.
By the way, remember who is in charge at TMZ?
Harvey Levin. So. And
what is Harvey Levin?
A lawyer, or at least he was one.
No, he is a lawyer. He always and will be a lawyer. Why do you think back in the day, he got away with so much shit? Because he was a lawyer.
Because he knew the legal workarounds.
I mean, that's what's so crazy about this whole thing, that It says here, we're told the rock and roll legend is alive, living in Memphis. Earlier today, we were told by someone claiming to be Lewis's rep he had passed. Oops. Uh-oh. What do you mean claiming to be a rep? You're going to go off a source saying they're claiming to be a rep that he's dead?
I mean, would it kill you to do a background check?
Well, not a background check, but how about just making sure the source...
check with one more source other than some random dude off the street that says, yes, I represent Jerry Lee Lewis.
I mean, we could go around and say Kanye West is dead.
I mean, I could say that. Nobody would take me seriously.
No, but I'm just saying, can you imagine if we went to TMZ and said, maybe not Kanye West, but pick a C-list celebrity and say, well, we're claiming to be their rep. Well, they passed away.
Brad Pitt died of rectal trauma somehow. How long do you think it would take before TMZ would find out that we're full of shit?
Well, no. First of all, they pay for everything. So as long as they're willing to pay us, I'll tell them any story.
Yeah, well, great job throwing away your morals. Great job throwing away your morals, Morgasen.
Nah, I probably wouldn't do that. But I do know that they pay people for stories.
I know you're thinking of it.
I'm trying to think who I would do that to. Nah, it's not that important. But yeah, this is weird. TMZ actually getting caught for the first time in a long time. So, and I love at the end of the story, by the way, it says, and this is the retraction story. It says, TMZ regrets the error. Oops! Do you regret the error, TMZ? Wait a minute. Do you regret the error? Do you?
Does it actually mean as much to you as you think it does? Because as long as you got those sweet, sweet clicks, does it really matter to you? Because I really don't think it does.
They don't care. They really don't care. Anyway, all right, let's move away from all the morbid and dead stories. And we got to go back to this. So, a Russian court held the appeals process for Brittney Griner's case. Now, let's not play dumb here and go straight to the facts. Did we really think that Brittney Griner was going to win the appeal in a Russian court?
No, and every talking talking head that CNN brought in when they would talk about this case, national security experts on Russian diplomacy. I mean, even people affiliated with the NBA, even people who had nothing to fucking do with this case, would say that the conviction they are going to basically wipe their asses with her appeal.
I mean, what's next? Are they going to say Dennis Rodman was going to travel back there again and try and save her?
Yeah, he was basically going to make like First Blood Part 2 and just jump into Russia like Rambo and just find a way to get her out.
I'm going to go kick a bunch of balls while I'm down there.
No, I'm going to do that, then I'm going to punch myself in the balls.
I don't know, but the way this goes...
What's disappointing, though, is that I would think that she would still be home by now, wouldn't you?
I'm not surprised. Are you surprised by what Russia does?
I would have thought the State Department would have a little bit more pep in its step when trying to negotiate with somebody, because
who's that moron that we keep seeing who was doing the press conferences out of the White House? That was Abe Lincoln. Was that the one?
Abe Lincoln.
No. I can't say his name. Anthony, whatever his name. The one that was the House person that was trying to get her back. I can't pronounce his name. Not Abe Lincoln. I don't know how to say his last name. He was like a House representative that was trying to get the prisoners free in the prisoner swap. You know who I'm talking about, right?
I have no idea.
Oh, Anthony Blinken.
Anthony Blinken is the Secretary of State.
But I used to hear them say it on the news as like they would always hyphenate his last name when they would say it on the news.
Anthony Blinken. But
they would always purposely hyphenate his last name, thinking it was two parts.
Wait, you confused Anthony Blinken with Abe Lincoln?
No, I was trying to say Anthony Blinken, but I couldn't think of the name. Ugh,
you know what? It's pretty close. So yeah.
My point was he was giving these press conferences and he was not very convincing.
But he kept giving those press conferences. Says, we're close to getting her back. We're close to getting her back. We haven't forgotten about you, Brittney.
Yeah. Okay.
Brittney. It's like, and
the other ones, who are stuck in Russia. Also, the other prisoners.
Yeah, the other civilians are stuck in Russia.
By the way, you noticed that they were only saying her name, and they didn't give a shit about the other 2 or 3.
No,
that
I mean, they've usually been brought up alongside her.
No, so I know, but her name is
brought up in reference to her. But if she was not locked away in Russia, this case would not.
It wouldn't happen.
Their cases would not have had the media attention that.
What was the point of having? But what was the point of having the appeals case? We knew what the outcome was going to be.
We knew what the outcome was going to be. The State Department knew what the outcome was going to be. The U.S. government knew what the outcome was going to be. Everybody did, and yet they didn't take any. They continued to drag their ass and let that poor woman rot in a Russian prison.
You know what it was? It was political theater. That's what it was.
It is political theater, and like I said months ago when this case first, and we were first following it, I think for Empty the Bench, but when we were first following it, I mean, I said it was going to turn into political football. This is basically going to be a form of gamesmanship.
This is not just political football. It's now a political football field.
Yeah, in that, Russia's like, oh, we have something you want. We must negotiate. And then the all this negotiating, and then nothing happens. But there really does seem to be a lack of urgency on behalf of the State Department to be able to get this woman back. Because
But here's the problem now.
And I really would hate to think that it's because she is a famous black woman.
But here's the problem.
I'm not throwing around any accusations.
Right. No, I get it. But here's the problem. So now her appeal is out. So now it's no longer getting out on appeal. They now have to figure out how to get her the fuck out of Russia.
Because if it was, I mean, they have to figure that out because, and I get the feeling that if it was LeBron James or Kevin Durant,
I said that. Yeah,
that they wouldn't be dragging their feet. Is it because she only is an athlete for the WNBA? She is one of the most famous athletes that the WNBA has.
Okay, but here's the problem with that.
Why are you letting this? Why are you letting this continue?
Okay, but here's the problem with that statement. Even though say she's a WNBA athlete, who owns the WNBA?
Well, Adam Silver, right?
The NBA. The NBA has ownership of the WNBA. So guess what? If she's fucked, the NBA is too.
The NBA is too, but I doubt Adam Silver musters enough of the soul within him to care.
First of all,
he says he does, but the fact that the WNBA really hasn't said much in the past couple of months, rather than just boilerplate, oh, we want her home.
Oh, and by the way, how many times are we going to hear like a Steph Curry before a game, or other NBA athletes, or female soccer athletes, or, well, we're here for Brittney. We're good. Okay, that's not.
If you would be pestering the State Department every single day to bring her home.
Don't get me wrong. That's fine, but that's not helping.
Again, but because it's just words, right?
Yes, they're using their platforms to speak, but you want to do good. You want to use your platform for good. Go knock down the door of the State Department and say, get her back. Because how many times are we going to say it till we're blue in the face? We're here for Brittney, and they were saying, oh, it was her birthday. Okay, that's fine.
But every day you waste, it's going to get worse for her.
I'm just saying, but just saying that we're here for Brittney is not going to bring her back.
Yeah, exactly. At a certain point, it becomes worthless platitudes. It does. If you're not willing to put in the work and the resources in order to be able to get her back, it's almost like you're trying to erase the fact that she ever played for you guys at all.
Right, and
you're just willing to, because she was arrested on a trumped up drug charge that, it's like, what are you? Because are you implying that she deserves it?
I don't know. So I'm reading it.
That's what the inaction is starting to. That's what the inaction in this case is starting to suggest, at least to my eyes.
So
I could be wrong about that. I reserve the right to be wrong about that.
Wait a minute. So, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan denounced earlier this week at the hearing as, quote, another sham judicial proceeding, saying in a statement that U.S. President Joe Biden, quote, is willing to go to extraordinary lengths and make tough decisions to bring Americans home. Really?
Because
really?
if we really have the ability, no, you know what? Scratch that. We do have the ability. We pride our State Department prides itself on being able to negotiate with anybody.
And by the way, I'm going to lose my mind this next thing I'm going to read if I hear it one more time. The U.S. State Department declared Griner to be wrongfully detained. Okay, we understand.
And what are you going to do about it?
Stop saying she's wrongfully detained and go get her back.
At a certain point, it feels like you're screaming at the wall, isn't it?
No, but I'm just saying, how many times are they going to say to the media that she's wrongfully detained? We understand. We get it.
You've said that millions of times. You've dragged Brittney Griner's fiance? Was it wife?
Wife, I think.
Yeah, wife. You've dragged Brittney Griner's wife in front of the cameras how many times?
And also, we did the story on here. Remember she tried to call through to the embassy in Russia, the U.S. embassy, and basically she got disconnected or it didn't work, and we did that story. And it was a whole joke. I mean, and then the other thing that's weird, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken took the unusual step of revealing publicly in July that they made a substantial proposal. I thought that was private information, usually. They
can volunteer that information, but they can't be specific about it.
No, but to say you made a substantial proposal, that's kind of...
You can say you made a substantial proposal, but as long as you don't say what that proposal is, technically that's statecraft. That's not...
I don't understand, though. You're willing to say you made a proposal, but you're not willing to do whatever it takes to get her out.
Or at least it doesn't seem like that. And perception is a lot in this. Perception is a lot in the arena of stagecraft and or not stagecraft but statecraft, and negotiations with between less than friendly foreign powers at this point. But
I don't know.
At a certain point, all that should kind of fall by the wayside. It's like it's the right thing to do to get this woman out.
Yeah, what are you doing? Obviously, they're not trying hard enough because she keeps getting put back in a Russian penal colony, and they don't give a shit. I know, and people are going to say you're being political. It has nothing to do with politics. None.
It's
Zero.
About the right thing to do. It's about the right thing to do. It should not be about politics. It's about the right thing to do.
And don't hit me for this statement. I don't care if it's Biden, Trump, or whatever president. Whoever's the president should get her the fuck out of Russia. I don't care who it is.
I would expect the exact same thing out of Trump, out of Obama, out of any president.
So I don't care who it is. So if anyone comments in the section below, it says it's politics. One, you're going to get blocked if you say it's politics. And two, don't try me. That's what I'll say now. All right.
It's frustrating.
All right.
Moving on. Yeah.
We got a lot more to do, so let's see how fast we can do it. This story just got me annoyed. Neil Patrick Harris facing backlash after disgusting and inappropriate comments about Nick Jonas resurfaced. And apparently this was when he was a teenager.
So these comments were made on the Wendy Williams show, I think, in 2015.
No, talk about a show to say I'm on.
And this was, I think they recently resurfaced on TikTok because some 17-year-old somehow dug that up and,
Are you surprised that comments get resurfaced on social media?
Which, again, you need to watch what the fuck you say. You gotta watch what the fuck you say, Neil. I mean,
but maybe he didn't. But he didn't say it on social media. Someone clipped it off a show.
Yeah, but normally I'd be saying, "Oh, he's changed since then." It's like, "Oh, well, allow people a little bit of grace to grow and change." But even then, he's talking about that he had a crush on Nick Jonas when Nick Jonas was underage,
12 or 13 years old.
Which, what the fuck? What entirely the fuck is wrong with you?
I don't know. I mean,
even if you were kidding, and I hope to God you were kidding.
I don't care if you're kidding. That's fucked up.
It is fucked up. It's fucked up whichever way you slice it. So I mean, and no, I'm not trying to cancel Neil Patrick Harris. I mean, all I'm asking is for a little bit of introspection.
Who is Neil Patrick Harris lately? I haven't seen him anywhere.
Well, he's been hosting a lot of stuff. He has a podcast now, I think.
Oh God.
Plus, he's been doing a lot of stuff on Broadway in recent years. But
I haven't seen him very much.
You still know who he is, though, don't you?
Well, of course. How can
so that's a win in his column.
One of my favorite shows was How I Met Your Mother. I mean, it's one of my favorite shows. Now I look at him kind of differently, though. But
I'm sorry, but this really doesn't seem like one of those things you could just explain away.
Well, did you see the comment? So he said he was really good looking before it was kind of allowed to think he was good looking, which was a bit of a problem. You kind of had to wait until he turned to be, 19 or 20. You're like, what is happening?
What the fuck?
Creepo!
What the fuck?
Creepo!
I mean, I'd hate to. I mean, what?
And you know what's worse? Wendy laughed.
I don't know whether that was a laugh or like a nervous laugh, like
So it says the video was shared alongside the caption, "How do celebs get away with comments like this? He was 42 here." Which,
again, ladies and gentlemen, you need to really watch what you say. I mean, even if you didn't, I mean, why the fuck would you think that? Why the fuck would you even be thinking that, much less saying it?
Yeah, this is bad. All right. Now, the sick part is because he's been around for as long as he has, somehow this will end up dying down.
No, it'll end up blowing over.
Stupidly.
I mean, he really ought to explain himself. But to be honest with you, I mean, they won't because, cancel culture doesn't actually exist.
I don't even know how to explain cancel culture anymore, to be honest.
Because it's not it's become such an amorphous concept to people because it's more about canceling people and more people being called out for the consequences, being people being called out for shitty behavior, mad that they're being called out. Because the only thing you ever see about cancel culture nowadays is it's basically in the conservative sphere going, I'm being canceled. This isn't fair. The left, the progressives are the real fascists.
Actually, ironically, Candace Owens.
Oh, God.
Well, think about it. She said a lot of horrible things on social media, and then where was she working originally? I don't even know. Was it Fox or?
Might have been Fox or ABC. I'm not sure.
I'm trying to look it up as we speak. Let's see. Oh God, do I really want to trust Wikipedia? Not really. But she's been controversial about a lot of things. And then somehow she ends up at the Daily Wire.
Because again, acting like a victim is really acting like the martyr in situations where you are not a martyr is pretty much the conservative media MO at this point, isn't it? I mean, you of all people would know.
But you mean working at a station, you mean?
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. So,
oh my God, she worked for Turning Point USA? Oh
God.
Oh. That's the same as what's his name, that twerp who has a show on Salem Media. Yeah, that asshole.
The guy whose mouth, nose, and eyes are 10% too small for his head.
Yeah, well, him and Ben Shapiro.
Oh God!
I'm smarter than everybody.
Oh God!
All right. Moving on. A few more stories to go. I'm glad you brought this next story to my attention because I didn't pay attention to it as much. Matthew Perry.
So Matthew Perry, he of Friends fame, has recently written a book about his struggles with
Addiction.
And it's a doozy, ladies and gentlemen.
There's a lot of interesting stuff in the book.
There's a lot of interesting stories about how he was so addicted to opioids around 2019, 2020 that his colon burst. It was making him so constipated that his colon burst. And he almost died. His heart stopped, and at his height, he was having like 55 Vicodin and a quart of vodka a day. It's like, Jesus.
When he was on the Friends set, like he told the story that apparently like he kind of like partially blacked out while acting on the set.
Yeah, and that what's his name?
What?
Matthew LeBlanc had to
nudge him.
Nudge him awake. But in that book, he talks about his relationship with River Phoenix, who Joaquin Phoenix's older brother.
Yeah, I think
he struggled with heroin addiction in the 90s and died very, very young. Died of an overdose.
Yes. Yep.
And a lot of people who became A-listers were friends with him.
Right.
Matthew Perry being one of them.
Yep.
And he said in his book, how is it that River Phoenix and Heath Ledger are dead, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us? Now, the fact that Keanu Reeves is basically the internet's golden child because nobody ever has a bad thing to say about Keanu Reeves, because literally every story you hear about him, it's like the man's a saint because he's nice to everybody. He's always considerate of his fans and the people he works with. Professional, the real pro. Plus, he's having a bit of an acting renaissance, in recent years. But what makes it fucked up is that Keanu Reeves knew River Phoenix as well, and Heath Ledger, and he was very broken up. He was very broken up at their deaths, the both of them. So it's kind of fucked up that
this whole book is fucked up. I mean, just some of the stories he told on the HBO Max special where they had the Friends reunion.
It just seems like needlessly cruel.
Well, he's had a fucked up life, and somehow he managed to get through Friends and not die. I mean, I heard that same story, like 55 Vicodin at one point.
It's pretty much legendary at this point.
But you know what the difference is, though?
Horribly fucked up through pretty much the entirety of.
But wait a minute. Friends. You know what happens when you take enough drugs. What happens to your system?
Eventually, it breaks down.
No. I'm talking about you because you said it's legendary. Taking 55 Vicodin. Think about tolerance is where I was going with it.
The tolerance is built up that he can't get. In fact, that's part of what it said in the book, that he can't get high anymore because it's like, there's such a tolerance that he can't get high off.
50
high off the stuff that used to fuck him up before.
55 Vicodin would kill you if you didn't have a tolerance.
I understand, and believe me, it's not like I don't have sympathy for Matthew Perry. I do. Addiction is a bitch. It is a monster, and really seems to have wrecked most of his life. So
let me clarify one thing. Addiction comes in many different ways too. It's not just drugs.
Comes in many different forms, and it seems like he's run the gamut of drugs, cocaine, alcohol.
Well, he's got the most dangerous addiction, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is dangerous because it could kill you fairly quickly. The fact that he is still upright at this point.
Well, think about it. When people say for surgeries, do you know what they do when you have surgeries? When you have serious surgeries, they give you Vicodin, but what do?
They stagger it out.
No,
in fact, my mother just had knee surgery. They wouldn't even.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when they give you Vicodin, what do they also do? They monitor you.
Yeah, they monitor you. They don't give you a lot, and they don't give you the quote unquote good stuff, the opioid derivative.
It's not even that. It's that it's so addictive.
Again, because it's dangerous because it's so addictive. My mother just had minor surgery. They wouldn't even give her, the good stuff, even when she was in pain. So,
my dad, I told you, had 22 surgeries, and they really had no choice.
And they had to kind of, and I bet you they had to watch him like a hawk because of it.
Yeah, well, and they gave him the Vicodin because he had serious surgeries though. Let me mind you.
Yeah, I know, and it's shockingly easy to get addicted to that stuff.
But I'm saying is like some people say like depending on the surgery you might not need Vicodin. My father had like really serious like bone like replacement stuff in the leg, which is a lot of pain. So he had no choice. They had to give him Vicodin because it's painful.
Yeah, I mean, all sympathy to your dad. I mean, it's difficult. And I understand what addiction does to you because it turns you pretty much into the worst version of yourself. But to come out and basically just trash somebody who had nothing to do with it, and of course he's backtracking now, saying that he just picked up Keanu Reeves at random when he said, "I really should have said myself."
First of all,
no, that's not what you meant.
Yeah, first of all, even if you're drunk or you're high usually when you mention somebody, there's a motive. Usually.
You're saying what you really feel.
Exactly. So this is it's a unique story. I'd be curious to actually see the book.
It really does seem like that was kind of stirring shit up to sell the book, and that's kind of beneath him. I mean,
well, we don't know that for sure. He's had addiction and all those issues. You don't know what type of person he is.
I mean, I know he's genuinely trying to make the effort to be a better person, which is all you can ask of anybody.
He looked terrible though during the reunion show.
Yeah, whether he looked terrible or not, he's literally trying to piece his life back together bit by bit, and I understand that. But taking swings at somebody who literally did nothing to you, that just seems a little
it's much
cruel.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to skip one story just because we're a little over an hour here. I want to get to two more stories. One which Nick and I are trying to get to the bottom of, and the other one has to do with radio, which I left for the end because it's a little more sentimental to me. But let's talk about the New York Post.
So the New York Post's Twitter account. Now, if you don't live in New York like we do, the New York Post is owned by the Murdoch family, which is basically owns Fox News. So
and News Corp, yeah,
right wing rag. So essentially, I mean, the sports section is good, good a lot of the time, but there are some columns, and I mean, political columnists. I mean, fucking forget it. I mean, I wouldn't even line a birdcage with it. At this point, but I'm getting ahead of myself because what happened was their Twitter account was supposedly hacked, and they were putting.
Oh, it was not supposedly. It was
used tweets referring to Mayor Eric Adams, Mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, as a racial slur, threatening to assassinate Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the famed progressive senator from representative from Queens, and
Lee Zeldin.
And Lee Zeldin as well, threatening to crush something about crushing Kathy Hochul's heart or something.
Well, so it says here, and I'm reading from the New York Times.
Please don't read the Eric Adams one. That's terrible.
Well, I don't have that stuff. They just So it says New York Post said on let's see, as of the day we're recording this, that a rogue employee had been behind a series of vulgar and racist tweets and headlines on its website earlier today. So this came from an employee.
So, just so you know, that employee is probably an ex-employee at this point.
It is. They were officially terminated.
If they have not, if they hadn't booted him at the time he did this, they definitely booted his ass now. So
it says the posts on Twitter included a reference to Governor Kathy Hochul falsely attributing statements about her to Representative Lee Zeldin, as well as posts about Eric Adams and President Biden's son, Hunter Biden.
Now, what makes this story, because it's obvious those tweets were awful in every single sense of the word, but it really doesn't. If you read the Post day to day, whether you're a regular reader or a hate reader, because there are both. I mean, I'm definitely guilty of it. It's really not that far removed from what they post really in the day. They're just saying they're just shouting the quiet part.
But
because a lot of it, like 85 to 90% of what they talk about is liberals. Grr! Joe Biden is an evil socialist from Venezuela who's trying to destroy your kids with the gay and trans agenda and the alphabet mafia. It's like, what the fuck is the alphabet
it's a bunch of political satire.
It's satire.
I'm just saying it's a bunch of
satire is supposed to be funny.
No, I'm saying it's a bunch of BS. Like it
is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of arguing in bad faith.
Well,
because it's not.
There's another line here which I shouldn't be laughing at it, but it says the employee also used the Post's internal publishing system. Now we're talking about like because now a bunch of the newspapers have moved online digitally now to republish an editorial about Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and changed the byline to Ben Shapiro.
Ooh, boy.
The headline was changed to say, "We must assassinate AOC for America."
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean,
Now let me clarify one thing, okay? I don't like AOC, and this is wrong. This is wrong.
I love AOC, and this is just terrible. But because there's just something about I know what it is about that woman that they hate so much. But I mean, even an idiot can see why they hate her so much. But regardless of that or anything else at this point, it's not. The fact that people kind of had to wait 20 minutes to go, wait, were they hacked? Because usually you're not, because again.
You know what's funny though also? The New York Post Twitter account came out and I saw it, and it says it in the article. The Post said that its Twitter account and publishing system have been hacked. That's all they said.
Okay. All right. You know what? We'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and then Jen Goodman, a spokesman for Kathy Hochul's campaign, demanded that the Post address how the vile tweets were able to be published.
You know what? I'll take your word for it that you were hacked. That it wasn't just some intern just saying the quiet part.
No, they said it was an employee who was terminated. So
exactly.
So they're actually lying, saying that they got hacked.
So they weren't hacked. It was basically just an employee fucking around with the Twitter access.
So they're lying.
Because again, they're trying to hide the fact, distance themselves from the fact that this is basically a normal New York Post headline with the volume cranked up to 50.
But wait a minute. The whole assassination of AOC headline, couldn't they get
fucking crazy?
Couldn't they get in trouble or charged for that?
I mean, technically you could sue them for, I don't know if you could sue them for libel.
No, but I'm not talking about libel. I'm talking about a threat.
I mean, technically that's a threat. I mean, because it wasn't satire. It was pretty obviously not satire.
No, but I'm saying, and like I said a million times, I don't like her, but I still.
But this is a woman who gets death threats on the regular.
No, but I'm saying for a New York Post.
For the New York Post, it's like this woman gets death threats on the regular. I mean, that woman has probably had to dodge so many bullets. She's practically a ballet dancer at this point.
I'm trying to. I'm trying to find.
I'm not even trying to be funny. They are literally trying to kill this woman. And it's just mystifying to me.
I'm trying to find. Oh, there it is. Okay, so New York Post Twitter account. Now, AOC might have a case because the New York Post Twitter account has almost 3 million Twitter followers. Okay?
So you put this shit out. I mean, it's definitely going to have a deleterious effect with your primary audience, because let's be honest with ourselves here. The people who follow the New York Post on Twitter, it's not. I want to say it's people of a certain political persuasion. I don't want to say
No, but
they're crazy.
But shame on the New York Post for not controlling their social media, knowing what social media does in today's climate.
That's your first mistake. That's your mistake. That's your first mistake.
And by the way, I'll tell you what's going to happen because, again, I did social media where I worked at the radio station, and that was dangerous in itself. But they're going to lock
because if you accuse them of doing anything, it's always I know you are, but what am I?
Right, but I'll tell you right now, figuratively, those accounts are going to be under a lock and key to a few people from now on.
If not under a literal lock and key at this point.
No, I'm saying is like they're going to tell a few people. Here's the deal: you two or three people have access, no one else. That's it. I mean, it's bad. It sets a bad precedent for newsmakers. First of all, that
news
organizations. Excuse me. You're right. News organizations, because now it proves that. Now, what stops people in other companies from saying, "Hey, look what this person did. I'm going to do it." Unless they don't want to lose their livelihood. Now, I don't know what that person's job was or who they were. They obviously had a political bone to pick because they went after AOC, but it is what it is. All right, one last story, and it has to do with radio back here in New York. Alt 92.3 now in New York is replaced with simulcast of 1010 wins. So unfortunately, the radio business is dying in front of our eyes. I don't know. What do you think?
Honest to God, I mean, you're seeing less and less pure music on these stations, even in not just in New York, pretty much everywhere.
Well, because it's not cost effective anymore. You could go to Spotify
and get Spotify, Pandora to a lesser extent, Apple Music streaming services, and it's kind of a damn shame. I mean, I never listened to all 92.3, but
you probably listened to it when it was 92.3 now, right?
I did not actually. That was usually my go-tos. My go-tos in the car radio are usually and still are to this day.
Z100.
Yeah, no, 104.3 and 102.3.
Oh, classic rock.
Yeah, the rock radio stations.
So, and those are starting to die too.
And terrestrial radio was kind of sucked for about.
Well, no, terrestrial radio has been
20 years. So yeah,
terrestrial radio has been dead for 15, 20 years.
I can't tell you how much of a shock it was to me to find out when I was interning at Hudson at iHeartRadio, the Hudson Valley, back in college.
Talk about a company that's in massive debt,
and they're not even called that anymore. It's iHeartRadio. It's iHeartRadio, the Hudson Valley. But yeah, I can't tell you how much of a shock it was to me to find out that everything was controlled by a master playlist.
Oh, well, yeah, I could have told you that.
And analytics for choosing all the songs. It's like, Jesus Christ, I thought there were actual people. You know,
was it still called Clear Channel when you were there?
Yeah, it was Clear Channel. It was Clear Channel Radio, the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, because Clear Channel became iHeartMedia and Premier Networks and all that stuff. Yeah.
And I was only there as an intern, so imagine that imagine my surprise. So the reason why I'm so cynical about radio, about certain kinds of radio, it really started there.
Well, one, you need to know people now to get in there. Two, they're basically, taking a bunch of shows, syndicating them, and putting them across the country.
Look what's happening now. I mean, it's not enough to get 10-10 wins. I mean, now you have to get 10-10 wins in both places.
Well, they wanted an FM signal because AM radio is. If you thought FM terrestrial radio was dead, AM is
essentially antiquated.
It's in the ground. It's buried. It's dead. Why do you think? Why do you think sports stations are adding an FM counterpart? Because AM is dead.
Yeah, and they want an FM signal because it's stronger.
It might be stronger, but it doesn't reach as far.
Yeah, and it doesn't reach as far. So, but again, this is really emblematic of where radio has been in the past 15, maybe even past 20 years, where things are just slowly but surely atrophying.
Why do you think podcasting and digital is growing? That's where you can do more things. You can see that we're doing more things here. We couldn't do half, and ironically, with this next statement, you can't do half the shit that you do on a podcast.
You can't do half the shit you can get away with on a podcast.
Well, and the reason I said it that way is because
if we were able to create a music podcast like an old style, rock, an old style music radio show like the ones we grew up with, that'd be fantastic.
Well, there's an app, and I'm not no free promos here, but there's Amazon created something called AMP, which was an app where you can literally go and create your own music show, and then it would show up on the Alexa app. You could hear your own show on there, and they have all the royalties covered in the music and everything.
Yeah, So I mean, if we could do that, we would. But this radio sadly is dying. But radio was kind of.
That's why I moved over to here, because I just said eventually we're growing little by little. I see it happening, and there's some new shows in the works, including I'll let you in on. I had a little call the day of recording. We might have another new show on the way, so. I'll tell you about it after.
Yeah. So that's actually a perfect transition. That's going to do it for this episode of Beyond the Bench. So
make sure you follow us on social media. I'll drop it one more time here so you can see it. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram for Beyond Bench, at Beyond Bench 1. ETB Network across all platforms for the network and TikTok as well. A lot of stuff coming. We're having some fun on TikTok now. We're actually getting a lot of views on there. But yeah, that just about does it for episode 51. That's Nick Fodera. I'm Nick Morgasen. We will, and actually, I'll let you in quickly just because we're heading towards the end of the year. We're already starting to work on best ofs for the end of the year. There was a lot of funny stories this year.
There were a lot of funny stories this year.
There are a lot of unfortunate stories too, which I'm sure you're going to get.
Yeah, there were a lot of unfortunate stories. So what we decided to do was take a normal break like we do, a 2-week break.
2 weeks, yeah.
With Empty the Bench, and basically bring you the biggest moments as brought to you by Beyond the Bench.
So you're going to get, it'll be broken down into halves. Yes, right. It'll be January to June and July to December. It'll be broken into 2 halves.
So you'll basically get to see a recap of everything big that happened this year as filtered through our big dumb mouths. So.
And we'll give you. You're probably going to see some of the unfortunate shootings we had to talk about
because that was really a common theme this year.
And maybe some of the celebrity deaths. There were a lot of them this year. And then you'll get some of the funny stories and and I'm sure you'll get me talking about the radio business a lot. But
yeah, you are. But make sure you subscribe to this page so you don't miss out on that.
Yeah,
and
let me grab that.
And you are absolutely not going to be starved for content. So
no, there's gonna be plenty of content. You're gonna get probably 2 1 hour, close to an hour, 15 hour, 20 shows for 2 weeks. The best of at the end of the year. So
you'll be getting that. So so just make sure you like and subscribe for that. So for my venerable co-host, Mr. Nick Morgasen, I'm Nick Fodera, and I'm saying good night, everybody. See you back on the bench.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.